Cash. Senator Faruqi.
President. Senator Pauline Hanson is a racist. She has always been a racist,
Faruqi,
and she will always be a racist.
Senator Faruqi, withdraw that comment.
President, the federal court of this country has found that Senator Hanson has engaged in racist behaviour.
Senator Faruqi, there is a standing order which says you do not reflect on a senator. You have reflect. This is not the federal court. It's the Australian Senate. I have asked you to withdraw, and I expect you to withdraw.
I withdraw.
Thank you.
30 years ago, in this very parliament, Senator Hanson stood up and said that Asian migrants have their own culture and religion, form ghettos and do not assimilate. Almost 10 years ago, she said Islam is a disease. We need to vaccinate ourselves against it. If that's not racism, I don't know what is. She is a grifter who does the bidding of billionaires. One Nation exists to prey on the anxieties of Australians and redirect concerns about housing, cost of living and inflation towards an invented enemy, migrants and Muslims. And I have said many times in this chamber, they are merchants of hate who find it easier to destroy communities than to build them. What she said about Muslims is disgusting. It is ignorant and politically calculated. It is designed to inflame, but it is not surprising. Hanson and One Nation's brand of racism has been inflicted on us for decades. They light the fire, but rather than dousing that flame, it is fanned. It is fanned by both the Liberals and Labour with their own brands of dog whistling, scapegoating, and falsely blaming migrants and Muslims for everything under the sun, from traffic congestion to the housing crisis to the horrific Bondi attack. And the media has played a similarly toxic role in vilifying and demonizing Muslims. This is what concerns me more. This is what has legitimized and normalized anti-Muslim hate in a way which is no longer fringe and has become mainstream. The Liberals are so far right and desperate now that they are looking at doing preference deals with One Nation, trying to resuscitate themselves using racism as their former leader actually fears that it is their last days. Labour also has their hands dirty. You have built a system that creates tiers of racism, and that some communities are more deserving of protection than others. We have heard loud and clear that our lives are not treated as equal. If such remarks had been directed, if the remarks that Senator Hanson made had been directed at almost any other community in this country, we would have seen all hell break loose, and rightly so. But the Prime Minister won't even call One Nation a racist and hateful party that they are. What are you scared of? Their leader has been found by the federal court to have engaged in racist behaviour. This is a senator who has been found by the federal court to have a tendency to make racist, discriminatory, hateful, derogatory and Islamophobic statements. The truth is that the Labour government wants to hedge its bets. Performative motions like this allow you to attend our iftars and whisper in our ears that Labour supports the Muslim community, while at the same time you hesitate to offer unequivocal support. You treat us as second class. You harden your stance on immigration, and you refuse to repatriate Australian women and children stuck in camps in Syria, because you are also quoting One Nation and its votes, and you are trying to appease the Murdoch media. But we can see right through this. I mean, this motion does not even mention Islamophobia. That's how much you care about anti-Muslim hate. What we are seeing here today is the predictable outcome of years of escalating hostility towards Muslims. One Nation thrives in this environment cultivated by successive Labour and Liberal governments. We remember when Prime Minister Albanese stood beside the anti-Semitism envoy in a big press conference to announce her, when journalists were not even invited to the Islamophobia envoy launch. That contrast did not go unnoticed. We remember when Labour passed some of the most draconian anti-refugee and anti-migrant laws in this country's history. We remember when Labour scapegoated international students for the housing crisis that they didn't cause. We remember what went on. You have legitimized all of this. So we won't let you hide behind this cloak of a performative motion when you have been part and parcel of the rising Islamophobia and hate that is in this country now. So let us censure Senator Hanson for her vile words, but let us not pretend that this is enough. There is so much more you need to do, and that includes ending your dog whistling.
Thank you, Senator Faruqi. Senator Thorpe.
I will be moving an amendment to this motion. It says that the Senate calls on this government to commit to implementing the National Anti-Racism Framework in full as a matter of urgency, because tackling racism requires more than words of condemnation, it requires action. Hanson's words about Muslim people were racist. That is plain to see. And I stand with my Muslim brothers and sisters as always. This constant racism and vilification has to stop. But this censure motion by Labor today is not about taking a real stand against racism. It is nothing but a cynical wedge and a cheap political stunt designed to undermine the coalition's chances in the Farah by-election. Labor wants to highlight Hanson's racism
Senator Thorpe, please refer to Senator by her correct title.
Senator Hanson. Racist, to prevent the coalition and One Nation from doing a preference deal in that election, because a preference deal will mean that the coalition is more likely to retain the seat. It is cheap politics and it is insulting to all of us who experience racism on a daily basis. This motion comes from a party that continuously allows racist language and actions in this place, even through the person in the chair. It doesn't take much to see how gammon Labor's commitment against racism is. If Labor were genuinely concerned about racism, they wouldn't be completely ignoring the National Anti-Racism Framework they received 15 months ago. Since then, they have not even made a formal response, let alone begun any implementation. They still cannot tell us when it will be implemented. If ever, there is just silence. The anti-racism framework was delivered by the Australian Human Rights Commission in November 2024 and provides a clear, evidence-based roadmap to tackle racism and white supremacist extremism at every level. It is a practical plan, not a feel-good statement. Yet more than a year later, this government has done nothing. Not a single recommendation has been implemented or even acknowledged. No timeline has been offered. The moment we need action after attacks on First Peoples and Muslim communities, the Lakemba mosque threats, the attack on Camp Sovereignty, the Bolu terrorist bombing, the planned attacks on mosques in WA last week, the government is ignoring the solution sitting on your own shelf. This is not just complete negligence, this is what systemic racism looks like. All this censure motion will do is give Hanson more airtime Senator Hanson more airtime to spout her racism, while attention gets steered away from Labor's inaction and back onto One Nation and the coalition. Labor are trying to frame themselves as the good guys here. They aren't. That's why I'm focusing on them today, because what we see from Senator Hanson is part of a problem this Labor government is creating by failing to take any real action. This government only sees racism as a political opportunity, not as a real threat to real people. They just speak about it when they see something to gain, like they do today, but they take no real action to tackle it. Today, Muslim people are again being used as political footballs, not respected, not protected. And Labor brand themselves as the champions of racialised communities, but the reality is they do nothing. And today they are using us as part of their own political strategy. I'll acknowledge that my amendment is a wedge too, but mine actually points to real practical policy solutions. It's a sad state of affairs that this do-nothing government can be wedged simply by offering them solutions. So yes, Labor, here is your wedge. A real, tangible, actionable roadmap to protect people and tackle racism. You can vote my amendment down, which I know you will, because this censure motion is only about cheap politics. It's not about real action. This vote will show clearly how much you really care about tackling racism in here, with that, and around this country. And there are no good racists.
Senator Thorpe, I'll come to you in a moment, Senator Hanson. In the way this motion has been established and moved today, you need leave to put an amendment.
Could I seek leave to put my amendment?